I'm Sai, and welcome to Ace Podcast Nation. On our channel, you can find podcasts, interviews, content on a whole host of subjects, including football, mental health, films, TV, conspiracy theories, writing, wrestling, serial killers, music, and much more. You will find today's guest writing on Fightful.com, also on some video content on their YouTube and Fightful Select. I'm really excited to welcome a talented writer. Joining me today is Fightful writer Joe Hulbert. Welcome, Joe. Thanks for joining me, mate.
Thanks for having me, man. I was listening to all them subjects you cover. I was waiting for my one to come. I was thinking, no, not the murderer one. Right, wrestling. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I thought I'd been pulled into saying then. Yeah.
Yeah, he just called you in. Right. What do you know about? No, it's all good. We do lots of different podcasts on lots of different stuff. Yeah. Variety, mate. Variety. It's good stuff.
Spice of life, man.
Yeah, got to do it. Dad, I'll have to do that to someone actually. When I get like a big name on the podcast and they think they're coming on to talk about their career, and then just go, and here's so and so talking about writing or something, or here's someone talking about rugby.
Yeah.
Sorry, that'll be good. It'll be good fun. I will spring that on someone one day. So Joe, like before we inevitably talk pro wrestling, and as I just said to you just before we started, we'll probably talk about Bray Wyatt, because that's my jam. Talk about a bit about what you do, what's going on with you. So like you're full time with Fightful?
Well, I mean, I'm exclusive to Fightful, not in the sense that they want me to be exclusive, just in that they're the only people that are crazy enough to allow me to write on their site. I was doing the lead MMA writer gig, but that was short-lived because I'm sure we'll get into that stuff. But yeah, I'm basically just a feature writer. So there's no like set schedule. I'll watch the shows. A topic will come up on a cover. I'll reach out to Sean, and I think, man, I joined Fightful in January 2017, and I think Sean has turned down a total of 0 like feature ideas. So the thing is the process is not smooth all the time, but I'll see something and I'll know I can get a feature there. It's not about like I mean, you can do a whole lot of content, like weekly content, right? Like we all see it, like, Raw recap, and guys do that stuff amazingly well, but that's just not my thing. So for me, it's like watch the shows and pick out one thing. That's like this week, watch Raw, watch SmackDown, that's 5 hours, but the one story out of it I took was the Buddy Murphy story. That'll be the feature this week. You see what I'm saying? That's really my gig.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. You did one on the Revival, I think, didn't you? And you did one on.
Oh man, I've done up and down.
It was one I read recently, and I forgot. It's completely gone blank in my mind. But I read it, and I really enjoyed it.
I've probably forgot it too, man. Don't worry.
This guy's going to really bug me now, though, because it sounds like I didn't read it, but I read it on Fightful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really enjoy some of your stuff. Like some of it, I enjoy all the ones I've read. Yeah, like he's quickly steered Fightful, to be in one of the fastest rising sites for wrestling, MMA, and like I always point people there. And like I've had like pretty much the whole gang of writers and podcasters on you, because I enjoy the site, I enjoy the writing.
I must say, I've been on Fightful for years, so I know and I admire what the guys do on the site beyond what I'm just the feature writer. And I'm not saying that to be like, oh, he's humble. I'm just genuinely saying, like, I do 1 article a week, 2 articles a week. But when I took on the MMA gig, I was in the kind of in the thick of it with the guys. So, Jeremy, Andrew, and Sean. And watching the amount of work that goes into actually covering a news round, like, they are the second to none. That team was whoever is on that team, the way that it's directed by Sean, it will always be that way. There's a certain level of like respect dealt with the stories. So that, I think people don't appreciate that enough. Like, and that goes for all the sites, man. But obviously Fightful is the one that I've seen firsthand. But 100%. I think the job they've done, and I say they because it is they're the guys that are on the ground doing the stories. It's amazing, man. I think they're very much established now,
Yeah, definitely. And like, to me, the only site which comes like close to them is The Observer. And I do think, like, with Figure 4 Online or The Observer, I think a lot of that is because of the length of time that they've been around.
Yeah.
As much as it is like quality of
It's tough,
coverage.
that, right?
They're good,
It's tough.
but like to be at basically the top of that kind of
There's times where I feel
niche
for him.
industry.
I mean, I must say, like, there's times where, I mean, I'm not a Observer subscriber, which isn't a reflection on them. I just don't intake a lot of that content, you know, like I'm kind of half on the outside. So it is kind of, I do feel for Dave when, like, you know, he's done that Observer every week and it's long, it's arduous, he's going through it. And then like 20 seconds of his podcast will turn up on my Twitter timeline. I'll listen to it and be like, oh man, that's a bad take. But that's just him talking, right? Like, I'm going to do this for you. The amount of bad takes I'm going to have in an hour is like, and no one's going to click my shit up. So,
that's
you
really,
might, but you know what I mean?
But what he does is he, like, I think what sometimes creates issues for him is you can't always tell a difference between his opinion and him
100%.
saying, oh, someone's told me this. And I think that can get him into a bit of trouble.
100%.
Obviously, he said one or two things, like, but, you know, compared to what Jim Cornette's doing on Twitter these days.
Exactly,
Dave's saying nothing, really, is he?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to give that too much airtime, but Jesus Christ. He's, Jim Cornette is going for it real bad at the moment. I don't know what he's doing.
That dialogue's just increased, man. It's not, it's kind of toxic. It's not kind of toxic, it's very toxic.
Yeah, it's, like, I think like a year ago, he was like, just like the grumpy old man of wrestling, didn't like the modern stuff. But everyone was like, yeah, he just, you know, he likes what he likes, and he's never going to Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks and that sort of thing. But like recently, it's just got really like personal and like singling out like
that stuff's that's just no good. The thing I think that's weird about it, and I mean, sorry, I don't hear it, but like, there's a weird thing that's come from that, like a conclude, like Cornette has his ideology, and that's fine, mate. Look, Jim Cornette's forgotten more about wrestling than I'll ever know. Same for you. You know, like, it's just the way it is. All respect, like the personal stuff, I'd leave that to the side because God knows what the motivation for that is. But it's sparked this thing where like every fan feels like they need to have a clear philosophy on what good and bad is. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if you notice, it's like you have different groups of people. It's like you have the guys that are like, oh man, all them work rate guys suck. Like, it's all about, and it's like, okay, just take it easy, man. Like, it's pro wrestling. You don't have to have an ideology too. None of us really care. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's what I don't get is, like, I love wrestling. I watch far too much of it every week. I talk about it incessantly. I talk about it to my wife, who doesn't give a shit, doesn't want to know about it, but I still talk about it to her because she's like in my daily, you know, routine. So if I've watched it, I'm like, oh yeah, this happened,
someone
this
about
happened.
it,
my kids don't listen to me, so I just not talk to it. But like, I don't get this thing, especially at the moment with like AEW and NXT and WWE. It's like there's these people who are like, oh, everything WWE does is terrible, and AEW is like the savior and this and that. And it's like, I don't get like this thing where you've got to hate this thing because you like this thing. And
I mean,
and
the main reason is it's such a false. And I genuinely, and everyone says that, everyone before they talk about this topic, they go like this, they go, I'm rooting for both to do well. That's what everyone says, right? But in truth, I genuinely do not care who victors in these mini battles and shit. But there are some like silly, like, so Double or Nothing will happen, right? Double or Nothing, great show, everyone loves it. And it's like, people are like, that's the best show of the year by far. And it's like, well, yeah, that's cool, but WWE's on every week. They can't just put a show on in May and be like, let's book our best card possible for Las Vegas. Like, you're comparing to just leave it and enjoy both. Or if you don't enjoy one, don't watch it. That's the real key, right? Just don't watch it. You know? I can't lie to you, man. There's times I don't, like, there's times I watch WWE and I'm like, I'm watching it the day after, right? We know the British, the way it is. Sometimes
wake it in the morning and watch it in the morning.
You're skimming through them Shane McMahon promos, man, and you're just like, I don't need to be watching this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I just leave it sometimes.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, like, what gets to me is these people who, and these are one of the few people on Twitter which actually genuinely annoy me, whereas most other people I'm just like, oh, whatever. And I just not bothered. It's the ones that say, oh, Raw is this bad. It's the worst stuff I've ever seen. Blah, blah, blah. It's terrible. And then it's like, oh, I don't watch it. It's like,
yeah.
So what are you basing your opinion on? like I get because like I watch every week, so I'm saying 6 months ago it was terrible. It was really bad, and like the run up to WrestleMania just gone, I didn't really enjoy. I thought it was one of the weakest of recent years. But in the last month to probably 2 months, it's got better.
Yeah,
SmackDown's been a lot better for like 3 months, because when it first did the brand split, SmackDown was really good, really, really good. And then it took a real like turn where they tried to.
I often say it, man. I think I mean, this is kind of wild, but it's very hard to, when you look back at old eras of TV, like it's very hard to really understand, to rate them the same way you rate today's, right? Like if we watched, like a 98 episode with today's eyes, we would not like a lot of that show. So I often think that first initial SmackDown Live, when it was like undermanned and everyone had to get featured, I think that's some of the best TV they have produced. Like everyone was kind of used to their foolish, like they made like a Dolph Miz feud was like blockbuster in SmackDown because they had the career stuff, and I think they did a great job with that. And that was, I mean, you look back on that now and how big the roster is, it's changed totally. The landscape's way different now,
Oh yeah, and I mean, like that's the thing now, isn't it? Is like suddenly everything's changed from like in 2 weeks' time or 3 weeks' time, whenever it is. I'd like to think it's going to be another boom period for wrestling, and I think in terms of just within the industry, it is, because there's going to be so many places for people to work, so many people for
100%,
media outlets to cover. I don't know whether the ratings are ever going to get up to the heights of what they were like in the Attitude Era, but that's a lot of that is because of the way people intake their content now.
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas back then in the 90s, early 2000s, you watched it on TV, and that was it. There was no other way to watch it. Or if you're in the UK, you had a friend who had Sky, you videotaped it for you, and then give it to you like a week.
I think it's fascinating. I mean, there's times where I waste way too much time on it, but like, I'll look at the day after Raw, when people put together the YouTube view lists for each segment.
Yeah.
And I'll look through them and I'll be like, okay, so this Finn Balor match did like 400K. And then here's this Roman Reigns match that did like 3.5 million. And I'm always sitting there thinking, where are these people? Like, what is happening here? What's the disconnect? I know, obviously, I'm not saying that's an indictment on either talent. I'm just saying it's a strange thing that some talents, Brock obviously is another one. Like, the YouTube numbers, a whole other audience of people. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's weird though, isn't it? Because like especially in America, like you've got like the shortened version of like Raw on Hulu, I think it is. Whereas, like you say, UK, I very, very rarely would watch like Raw or SmackDown live, because it's like I don't want to stay up all night, finish at like 5 o'clock in the morning.
I was doing for Fightful at one point. I was doing the live coverage for Raw. So I was on that 1 till 4, and when the third out, you're sitting there thinking this is a pretty good show, and then you look down at the time and it's like, oh my god, I'm not even halfway through this thing. The adverts are rolling. Leo Rush is screaming Lashley at you. It's hard. That's tough. That's a tough gig.
And when you're doing it live, you can't fast forward those adverts.
No, and man, you got to note them promos down.
Oh Jesus, I can't. I couldn't do it. I pay-per-views I can stay up and watch generally if I want, if I really fancy it. But then and often I think, shall I stay up till like 5 o'clock in the morning and watch it, or shall I get up like I normally do with my kids at like 6:30, 7, and then just watch it then?
I think, to be honest with you, we're now diving deep into like the niche how Brits watch wrestling. So, but just quickly to conclude, now since I've stopped doing the live for the pay-per-view, I haven't watched either on time. Like I didn't watch SummerSlam live, and I enjoyed it so much more without scrolling through my Twitter being like, okay, what's everyone's opinion on this? Like it's just not good, It's not just watch it, turn your phone off, watch it the morning after, fast forward, if you don't want to watch. Like I think it's better, but we sometimes just punish ourselves. I don't know why.
There's nothing worse than watching that pre-show live, because it's just like repeating stuff you've already seen, talking about stuff you've already heard them talk about, and it's like I wish they would make the pre-show like 3 matches and do your like little chat bit with on the desk and have that stuff, but you don't have the video packages, which have already been
Yeah.
shown a million times. Because you just feel, sometimes I've watched that pre-show and they have one little match right at the end, which they cut an advert over half of it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've
Them
just
poor
really
cruiserweights, man. The
wasted an hour.
cruiserweights have filled so many pre-shows. But you know what? I mean, obviously there's positives too. I know the audience is sometimes is big, and I'm not knocking it, but you are right. Like when you've waited for that match and it cuts to an ad in the middle, that's tough. While they're grabbing a headlock, that's tough, you know?
Yeah. Especially when you've literally watched 45 minutes of nothing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, for God's sake. But yeah, I think, you can't knock them. You can knock them, but I mean, from their point of view, they're making more money than they've ever made from TV and stuff.
100%.
But like, sometimes it feels like they don't like their viewers.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah,
it just feels a bit like they book against the fans rather than going with the momentum of the story or what makes sense.
See, that's an interesting topic though, right? Because like if you said about the Mania build earlier, I didn't like it much either, but there was an interesting trend where the Becky and the Kofi storylines basically were like the authorities playing against your favourites, even when it like didn't need to be that way. Do you see what I'm saying? Like it was almost like insider. We're not going to give you what you want, but the story is we are going to. So they establish themselves as the heels again, and I was watching it thinking, man, I feel like this Becky stuff could just be her and Ronda cutting promos. Like I don't think it needs to be this sort of elaborate. McMahon wants this, and Becky's got to like. Sometimes I think because the audience is so. I mean, they're pretty harsh at times, right? Like, if they don't like what they see, they're quick on it. I think sometimes they overthink and they're thinking, let's play the thing they want us to be. Let's play the awful authority that doesn't care. And that all came 2 months after they all stood as baby faces, the McMahon family, remember? And was like, new start. So when you do stuff like that, that's why you lose people's trust, because they don't decipher the difference between real and TV at times, It's hard. And that's way complex. At that point, they've well overthought themselves.
Yeah, I think they definitely go. It's obvious that you can see that they've overthought stuff, because like the Becky and Ronda stuff was really weird. When they first it was kind of or you knew promo. That they were going to clash. It was so hot and so like everyone was bang up for seeing it. Everyone wanted it to be the main event. There was no need to like overcomplicate it with authority figures and making Becky kind of be like the underdog in this story and have to come back. And I think they injured her, so she had to fight injured in the pay-per-view before. And it's like, Jesus Christ, like I just wanted to see Ronda and Becky go at it like
I totally agree with you
and
100%.
See where it went.
To me, the first promo, they were head-to-head, you just said, okay, get me to the match. That's what you wanted. But I think this brings up an interesting thing that very few people actually talk about, because it's basically unsolvable. So therefore, it's the dead end. But I sometimes watch Raw and I just think, I'm just not sure wrestling is supposed to be in a 3-hour format. Or even, I think 2 hours is tough. You have to be very on point. Because realistically, if you have, the traditional start of Raw, right? Like you look back at the original Raw and it's like 1 hour. And guys are missing 3 weeks of TV. They'll do one promo in 3 weeks of TV. In that format, Becky and Ronda stays hot forever, because you haven't got to do any stuff in between. They're just doing one promo. You do a video package, whatever. In now, every week you have to do a new episode almost of that particular story, right? And what happens is they look at the thing and they're like, okay, this is hot, but we're in February. We're 2 months away from WrestleMania. We need to have all of these different ups and downs and loops. But as you say, really as a fan, none of us wanted any of that. But I guess that's how they felt they had to get through the TV time. I don't know. It's hard.
But there's ways they could have done. So if we use that story as an example with Ronda and Becky, like you could have had them brawling. You could have had like the horsewomen come out just for like, not for a permanent thing, but just like as a segment. You could have done, numerous
there's
different
options
things.
For sure, yeah. There's options without having doing the crutch stuff and all that. Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, so let's move to the the Wednesday night wars as it's upon us in a couple of weeks.
Indeed, yeah.
You know, it seems like it's going to be a special sort of time for wrestling, certainly for the next year or so, depending on how it all goes.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen some interesting takes this week from people around social media, podcasts and stuff about NXT getting this deal. So you've got like the WWE fans who are like, oh, AEW, bunch of marks, they're rubbish, they're just a bunch of indie guys. And it's like, they're like, oh, well, NXT has always been on a Wednesday, so they're not doing, you know, they've just naturally gone on to Wednesday, like, live. And it's like, oh, you can't possibly believe that. Like, yes,
I think they do.
probably, but they probably would have ended up going live on a Wednesday at some point.
Yeah.
But if I can't understand how people can't see the correlation, but they are, they are out there, those people.
Yes.
So I'm of the opinion that if Vince stays away from it, that it could be fantastic. And I actually think it's what NXT needs, because NXT, I wouldn't say it's gone off the boil perhaps, but it's not quite as, the TV as well is not quite as good as it has been previously over the last couple of years. And I think there's guys like Punishment Martinez and Keith Lee who are, they're barely seen on TV, and they're, non-takeovers. And I feel like that extra hour could be good for guys like that. We can see there's a lot of talented guys on that NXT roster. And I think they've shown that they can book well and they can write good storylines and they can do interesting stuff, which culminates in really good matches at the takeovers or the pay-per-views or whatever it's going to be. However, I do feel a bit like if Vince gets involved in it, if the ratings aren't, if they say in the first few weeks of AEW, they spank NXT in the ratings, you can just see Vince and Kevin Dunn being down there like the next day. Yeah. And I just feel like that could be the beginning of the end, because not just because of what it might do to the writing and the content and the who gets pushed and who doesn't, but I just feel like the second people know, like fans know that he's having a big say,
it changes the perception.
Yeah, they won't care if it's good. It will be, Vince is ruining NXT because it's not what was always. Whereas if he's not involved, then they'll give it a chance to see if it's good. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I have a very odd perspective on this because, and it isn't really an interesting one, it's just odd because from May 2017 to, I believe it was August last year, 2018, I did the NXT report cards. That was a weekly show where I covered NXT, and I would watch it twice. I'd watch it once, write notes, and then watch it once just to see if I was on, I just had the same opinions. And man, NXT is a very good show, but they have a certain playbook that once you've watched it enough with that level of attention, it almost you lose sort of the affinity for it. And then I didn't love the way that they kind of fumbled the Gargano Ciampa thing. It was I can't wait to see these guys fight. And the next thing you know, I'd seen them fight 3 times in the same match. I know there was other factors. I totally get that. Since I stopped covering NXT, I think I've watched I've watched some of the takeovers, but the actual TV, I think I've watched maybe 10, 15 individual matches. And the TV, I have just no motivation to watch it. There's nothing I think to myself. And Velveteen Dream's fabulous, and all them guys, Undisputed, they're great talents, but I'm not sure what it is. But at some point for me, and I don't think I'm alone in this, because I don't see a lot of people talk about the TV, right? Like you just said, people think it's declined. I don't have that desire to watch it. So when you say they need this move, I totally agree with you. I think the TV needs an injection of something new, and this is the challenge, right? And my other thing on this is, man, this really puts into perspective how tough the challenge All Elite has ahead of them, in the sense that let's be honest. I mean, this is WWE's third brand as far as talent. I mean, it's an amazing roster. And you look at their roster and you're like, man, like, are you really taking all elite roster over that roster? Like, that's a stacked crew they got in NXT. That's their third squad, not third best guys. I mean, that's just like they've got two other teams like that. And to me, when I looked at it, I was like, I'm gonna watch all elite wrestling because there's a mystery to it for me. Like, how are they gonna do TV? But in truth, I think NXT's quality might be actually above them. But I mean, that's a tough guess. But their roster is extraordinary. It really is great, the NXT roster, you know?
Oh yeah. And the problem, not a problem, but one of the things which could be problematic for AEW is obviously they write the YouTube show every week, and it has got longer and longer over the years. But that's a whole different ball game to like doing skits for a couple of guys. And to be fair though, that YouTube show is predominantly the build for All In and stuff like that, which they did, and it worked perfectly.
The Road to stuff is very effective, 100%. Carry on, Jacob.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, and the Road to stuff is all really good, but it's very different to writing a 2-hour show where you've got to get all these guys in. You've got to make sure that they're not just the story and the writing is good. You've got to make sure the matches are up to their, because they, let's be honest, they're kind of marketed as well on the quality of their matches, all, as a group, like the Elite. So their matches on the TV have got to be, up to a certain standard as well. They've got to keep everyone happy, which is, I think, going to be a new thing for them. Because, if you've got like some big names who've signed with them and then they're not on TV for a few weeks, or they're not in a big storyline, then they've got that problem, which they've never, had to deal with. And I know they've brought in, experienced guys to deal with that sort of thing. Whereas NXT is already like, I know it's not live, but
it's a machine.
Everyone's in that machine of doing weekly TV. And the other thing WWE can do, of course, at a drop of a hat, is they could just drop anyone they like in there. So if they feel like, if I was them, what I would do is I would, over the next 2 weeks before they go live, I think it's 2 or maybe 3, over the next few weeks before they go live, is I would ramp up Matt Riddle, slating Goldberg, like really ramp it up. And on the first live show, I'd have him cut a promo on him. And then on the second live show, I'd have him cut another promo on him, really like slating him. And then the first night that they go head to head with All Elite Wrestling, I'd have Goldberg turn up and attack Matt Riddle, like from the crowd or something like that. Announce that he's going to be there as like a special guest of William Regal, or just some shit like that. And then have a massive brawl to end the show for their first head-to-head show.
The issue, I mean, that is literally that's feasible. They can do that.
Well, that's what the point I was making is that they
can do anything. Yeah,
they can pretty much drop anyone in there.
Yeah, that's tough.
If they want it. That's
tough,
big ass. Like when you look at some of the names which are either affiliated or under their contract, they could drop Daniel Bryan in there for a program with Adam Cole, for a month. It's scary the talent they've got.
I always point to it. I always say, I said to you earlier that he was my fish this week, but I always speak, like, never forget that WWE had Buddy Murphy under contract for like 14 months for that appearing on TV. Neville bounced and they were just like, well, I guess we'll just use Buddy Murphy now. I mean, like, he's extraordinary, dude. He was just chilling. They didn't have anything for him. That group of talent, I mean, I don't know how many people they have contracted now. It's in the hundreds, like, by a distance, I'd imagine, but... you're right. They can pull from any which direction. They can get a guy like Daniel Bryan who appeals to all Elite's fan base, or they can do a Goldberg thing which appeals to a whole other. Like, it's tough to battle that,
Here's another one I thought of. What they could do if their ratings are not, even if they're good, but they're not as good as they want. Is you put Finn Balor with AJ Styles and Gallows and Anderson on Raw as a group, which I think they're going to do anyway, and then you have them cut a promo on Raw and saying, Undisputed Era, we're coming for you. And you drop in the Club versus Undisputed Era on a Wednesday night.
Well, it's interesting you say it because I don't think the Undisputed Era is going up anymore because it isn't up, is it?
No,
I think I think they're in NXT for life now. And to be honest, I think that's for the best because I think that's where Adam Cole is just perfect and he can be world champion with ease. But considering that, I think you're guaranteed some form of cross promotion there. Like, I just think that's too much. That's just money, right? Like sending the club over on a Wednesday night while all the leagues try to do their thing. That's harsh. That's win, you know.
That's what you do, isn't it? 100%. And like you can have, like, the thing with Adam Cole is obviously his size. Like Vince is going to take one look at him, but when he's called up to Raw or SmackDown, and he's going to like meet him backstage, and Vince is going to be bigger than him, and that's it in his head. He's going to be like, and it doesn't matter how well he can talk and how well he can work. Whereas if Vince isn't there, Triple H knows his qualities. He knows how good he is on that mic, and he would push him. So it's kind of like, position where
if NXT is now, go carry on. Finish up.
I was just going to say, a lot of these guys, it's almost like they're waiting for Vince to leave to either retire or go to an XFL or whatever he's going to, you know, because then suddenly you could have Adam Cole, Gargano, Ciampa go up on a main roster, and your main roster would be fire.
It's interesting. I think this is why NXT being on Wednesdays live is such a game changer, is because if the reports are true that they're going to now make these main roster contracts, it effectively means that you've built a brand that's designed for every wrestler that would look at WWE and say, man, I don't know if they'd use me right up there. Well, guess what? Now we have this brand that's made for you, and you're going to get paid the same. You're on live TV. All Elite before could say to a talent, like, oh, you're thinking about NXT, but we got TNT, we're on TV. You're just going to be hidden on the network. Not anymore, man. Like, they're now right there. So I think that element of it, saying that, I don't know who even is a free agent out there anymore, everyone's signed, but you know what I'm saying? Like, that is a game changer, really, because it means that a guy like Undisputed Era can be content with being on NXT forever, because if they're getting paid the main roster way, then it's just a different thing, you know?
Yeah, well, I think it's quite relatively common knowledge, isn't it? That a lot of people, the main reason they wanted to leave NXT to go to the main roster was purely from a financial point of view.
Yeah.
You know, like Oscar and people like that were happy, and you know, even Finn Balor, they were happy in NXT from a, you know, enjoying their work and all that type of thing, but they wanted that big, you know, the big money, especially for people like, you know, Finn Balor and Seth Rollins, and you know, the ones who get like the big money. It's a big difference from that NXT.
I also think as great as the takeover events are, and they are like spectacular, but I do think there's a lure to a WrestleMania. Like if you're an NXT guy and you watch, on that Saturday you have the best show of the weekend, but then you look out at Sunday and you see the entrances, and I mean it is an incredible stage and show, and I think stuff like that probably. But then again, I mean, an NXT takeover event is still, it feels as grand as anything All Elite's probably going to produce, most likely, right? Do you know what I'm saying? Like really, when NXT is at its best, like, man, that takeover they did with the first Ciampa Gargano match, like where Ciampa walked out to no music, like that felt big time, regardless of it.
Velveteen Dreams entrance as well.
Yeah,
the same show. But like, and I take what you say there actually, because like even with SummerSlam just gone, you like the NXT show was very good. I don't think it was as good as some of their previous shows.
Yeah,
it was really good. It was really enjoyable. The matches were great, fantastic. From a ring work point of view, it was probably better than SummerSlam. But if I'm those guys, from like a personal point of view, if I was one of those guys and I'm watching the Fiend's entrance at SummerSlam, I'm like, I want to be there. I want to be working against him.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be on that stage, because it was like just his like entrance was like an event, and it was so like. You saw like did you see the guys on the watch along?
Yeah, so I've seen the pictures.
Johnny Gargano,
right?
like, but they were like all genuinely glued to the TV just for the entrance. And it's like
the other thing is
ball game, isn't it?
That's exactly that phrase, exactly it. Because yesterday I was with my friend who doesn't watch wrestling at all now, but like, he just knows the people and the thing, and he just says to me, he goes, "What's this Fiend stuff?" He'd just seen a YouTube video where someone put a compilation of all his stuff. And I was thinking about it afterwards. I was just thinking, that's a very WWE thing, that, right? Like, they can capture because it's WWE and they have that brand and the YouTube and the whole thing, they can capture someone who's just a casual fan. They'll just click on a video. And if you look at All Elite's YouTube numbers, they are very good, but I don't think they're getting that fan because it's at the end of the day, it's not WWE, and that's going to be a long period. You're going to have to do a lot of work to scratch that perception away. You know, a lot's happened since the Monday Night Wars. They've established themselves. They've got new generations of fans. So that, I think, is the biggest challenge that those of us in the bubble, and we are firmly in the bubble, we sometimes kind of brush off. It's a big thing, that perception of that's wrestling to most people, even though they don't consider themselves wrestling, which is a whole other ironic, swing of it. But yeah.
Yeah. But then, speaking from someone who's got a YouTube channel, it's very small. I hit 500 subscribers today, so it's really small. Yeah. I can attest to how difficult it is to get your shows and your videos in places where people who are not already subscribed to you.
Yeah, we're just stumbling upon them. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Really, really hard unless you want to spend a shitload of money. And even then, I think it's really hard because I'm convinced that the adverts with Google or Facebook and stuff, I'm not sure they work properly to the extent where, like, if I was going to buy an ad, for instance, I'd want my podcast showing up after, like, a Fightful podcast as a recommended thing, or like a Joe Rogan podcast, just like other podcasts talking about similar stuff to try and get people in. Whereas that's very, very difficult to do. Yeah. So, like, obviously, with All Elite, they had their own YouTube channel, which has got 100,000 subscribers or something, big numbers. But then they started, obviously, the new, like the AEW channel and I forget what the third one's called, but the one that does the Cody Rhodes videos and stuff like that. So they've all started from scratch, and I'm sure they've got thousands of subscribers. But even then, like 10,000 subscribers or 100,000 subscribers doesn't get you up that list to the likes of WWE and those brands who've got stupid amounts of subscribers, like 5, 6, 7, 8 million. It's very hard to break those numbers, there's millions of YouTube channels, and there's a hell of a lot of people who've got 500,000 subscribers. I was amazed at how many YouTubers have got like over 3 million subscribers.
The amount of times there'll be a video on my trending, and I'll click on that video and be like, I have no clue what I'm clicking on, right? But it's just trending. It'll have some. I'll click on it. It'll be subscribers 3 million, 4 million. It's like, it's amazing how that's a whole other world. That's 4 million people, and I couldn't be less aware of this person. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's an odd thing. Right? But there's guys with like 20 million that I don't know. Like, really, I couldn't put them out. But that just shows you kind of the power of the internet and what we were saying about wrestling earlier. Like, where are these 4 million people that are only watching the Roman Reigns matches, right? Like, where is that the Lax fan? I haven't got a clue. I have no, like, analytical. But that makes All Elite interesting to me because, well, look, none of us are questioning. The All Elite roster is very talented. No doubts about it, man. That's a very talented roster. But are there enough faces on there that the channel flicking viewer will stop? And if not, can they create an energy and an atmosphere that's so vibrant that when you just stop on their show, you're like, oh, man, what's this? Because if neither of them are achieved, it's like, I don't know where the viewership is, right? Like, Moxley's a huge get, man. But Moxley and Jericho is really, as far as, I mean, Cody, I guess, captured even more buzz after leaving, and he was in WWE for them years. But other than that, it's slim, right? As far as star power, real star power that general fans know.
That people will know, yeah. Like Cody, obviously, was on Arrow and stuff like that. So I think like Cody, Jericho, and Moxley is huge.
Yeah.
Because if people see Moxley, they're like, oh, that's Dean Ambrose.
Yes, exactly.
So they will watch it.
This is Chris Jericho is legitimately one of the best ever, and I'm a huge Chris Jericho, but there is a truth to the idea that when you look at Chris now, he looks like an old version of himself, because he is, in fact, an old version of himself. It's not a knock. He's amazing. Whereas the beauty of Moxley is he's just Dean Ambrose that you saw on Raw earlier this year, but with a whole other, passion for what he's doing. Whereas with Jericho, I think the cynic would look at it and be like, oh, man, what's Chris is doing this other wrestling now? It's different feel to what Moxley's doing.
And if it's someone who's not not in the wrestling bubble,
Exactly, yeah.
They're going to look at Jericho and perhaps be like a bit like, he's winding down his career.
Exactly.
WWE doesn't want him anymore, type thing. Because they're not in the bubble and they don't see the shots he's firing on social media and they don't see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right, yeah. And I think that's their biggest problem. Not their biggest problem. That's going to be their biggest challenge, is to bring in people completely outside of the bubble. Because if I was guessing, out of the sort of wrestling bubble, I kind of think like 75% are probably going to watch All Elite Wrestling, at least at the start, to
I would say
see what it's like. And I would say a high percentage of them are wrestling fans who probably like the Elite, or at least like wrestling a lot, so they'll watch it because it's live and they know it's going to be pretty good, and they know it's going against NXT, so they're going to check it out. Whereas, like you say, WWE can push NXT on Fox, they can push NXT on USA, on Raw.
There was an interesting development from the Vegas show, Double or Nothing. When I watched it, there was something I didn't grasp, because I'm not really in that, like, the Elite world. I don't really watch the YouTube shows and stuff, but the audience didn't react to like the independent favourites that they've signed up as much as I thought they would. No, so what I mean is, you could tell, obviously, oh man, they love Cody, they love the Bucks, Kenny, they know all that, but like, there's this middle fan, right? There's a fan who watches everything. There's a WWE only fan, and then there's this middle fan who just is intrigued by the All Elite thing only, like the Elite guys only. So maybe that exists, and maybe there's a perception that, man, this is the cool new wrestling that's going to change things. How big that perception is, I guess we'll find out when it starts on TNT. But I do think there is like a group of fans who literally just, they don't even seen many Bucks matches. They just know Cody has this group of guys and they're fighting uphill. And maybe that will be enough to actually transfer and transform into numbers. We'll find out, I guess. I don't know.
Well, even me, like, I don't watch as much New Japan now, as I still got the New Japan World and stuff. I don't watch that as much. Like last year when they were all there, I watched every match in the G1, and I watched all of, like, I would make sure I seen Kenny Omega's feuds because they were awesome, and this and that. And I haven't been.
So I'm the opposite.
I watched a lot of the G1.
Yeah.
But I have like faded out of it a bit compared to last year. And I wouldn't even consider myself like, I'm all for All Elite as a group. Like I really am a massive fan. I am a fan of them. I enjoy their work. I really like.
I don't think you're alone. I think, from what I can tell, I mean, I might be totally wrong about this, but it does feel like less people talk about the New Japan shows generally now than a year ago. I think personally. I mean, I enjoy the show. I mean, last year I watched less than I have this year, but that's just not on the Elite. That's just me kind of. Sometimes New Japan, man, I just think like that product is so good, and every time I watch it, I legitimately sit there and think I should really not be missing these shows. Like, I never ever, saying that's a lie, the Jericho Okada finish left me a little bit like flat, but generally speaking, man, when them shows go off the air and Okada, Tanahashi, whoever it is caught a promo in the middle of the ring, I finish it and think that was a good investment of my time. But then for some reason, man, wrestling Don Zach will roll around and I'll be like, I'll catch it then. Like, it's weird, right? Like, I don't know why that is. Yeah,
it's a strange one. I think. Do you think they end up working with All Elite eventually?
You know what? This is wild talk, but I legitimately am at a point with wrestling where it's so crazy that I think you should expect insanity. I would not be surprised if you see them work with NXT. That's not a scoop. I'm no Sean Ross Sapp, but genuinely, with the way wrestling is trending, I mean, dude, Vince has employed Bischoff and Heyman to run his TVs. It's madness, crazy. Man. That's crazier than the idea of NXT using the odd New Japan guy and sending someone for G1.
Talking about crazy, I read earlier on Fightful.com that CM Punk's agent had contacted Fox about working in like they're doing like a studio show on Fox for WWE, and his agent apparently has reached out to Fox to work for Fox rather than WWE, but he'll be like a studio panelist and stuff. And I was like, Jesus Christ, the world is wrestling world's just gone freaking crazy now.
It's crazy, man. What I legitimately don't
Can
know.
you imagine him though in a studio like reviewing WWE's
But like,
week?
is it gonna be? Is it gonna be like reviewing it like the Fightful guys and or is it gonna be reviewing it like they just watched a sporting contest take place? Do you see what I'm saying? Like are they going to be watching matches and being like, man, Charlotte should have gone for the cover? Or are they going to be saying that was a bad match? Like, I legitimately have no clue how you do that. Very weird. Because I think if you go too hard on the sports stuff, I think there's going to be general sports fans that are like, oh man, this is lame. You know, like I don't know if you should do that. Yeah.
Yeah, because if they try, you can like if they tried to do it like like football on a Sunday where you got like the panelists sat there.
You have a Soonest
Raw goes off the air and you've got like freaking CM Punk and I know John Cena as these guests with Renee presenting it, and they'd start trying to like discuss it as if it's real.
Yeah,
people are going to go off that. It could be car crash viewing, and it could be really entertaining.
Especially if CM Punk's doing it, that could be hilarious.
Yeah, like that cringeworthy, like he'll be saying like stuff which they really, really don't want him to say, and it's just like could be quite interesting from that point of view.
Strange, right? I don't know how they're actually going to do it.
How do they find the balance between like what's like a real and shoot sort of thing, panelist point of view? It could be weird. Like it's weird, and it could be interesting.
I think that's interesting, the Fox thing in general, because I remember all of us like. Wrestling fans have known about this deal for ages now, and I remember everyone being like, man, by the time October 2019 rolls around, they're going to have everything ducks in a row, they're going to have big shit coming, and it's like, well, we're a month away, man, and there's no brand split, it's chaos, I don't know who's going to be on every show, so good luck to them figuring out, maybe it's just going to be this way. I mean, to be fair, we both agreed the show's been good, so wildcard or not and all that silliness, the shows are actually like, I think they've been quite good recently. But it doesn't feel organised, or does it really? I wouldn't say.
It'll be good. So what's the gap between NXT's first show live and Fox's the first SmackDown on Fox?
It's 2 weeks, I think.
Month, isn't it? Is it?
I think it's short. Yeah, I think it's shorter. Yeah.
So what I would like to see, they won't do it, but I would like to see them do this massive, huge freaking draft, and just make all the shows individual, but like completely mix it up.
I would love it on the network, dude. If they did an actual draft, like a full-on, like that would be wonderful for guys like us to actually care about it. It would be great. But yeah, I totally agree with you, 100%. Yeah,
because I want Raw and SmackDown to be completely separate.
So
then if you chucked in some big names from NXT, and you put down some equally sort of names of about equal standard. You don't want to be taking away like a Matt Riddle and replacing him with like Fandango or something. You need to make sure you're replacing them appropriately. But I feel like if they gave all the shows like a massive shake-up and then said, right, they're completely separate now, that could be quite interesting. Because
I agree.
Like really, and what I want to see is like different matches and different rosters. I don't want to see like just the same top guys, or they need something new. They just go across.
And I can't believe I'm actually saying it, but it's the truth. It doesn't seem that when they do the shake-ups, they actually do any sort of planning or like how many times there was last year, 2000, I think it was 18, I want to say. There was one year where they put like every tag team was on SmackDown. There was like 8 good tag teams on SmackDown, but they had maybe 2 good females. And then Raw had no tag team. And then they did the switch. Like this year, so I was going to do an article for Fightful about the shake-up. And it was going to be like, who went where, what does this mean? But unfortunately, the shake-up this year was like 2 months long, so I didn't end up doing it. It was a non-starter. But there's this sentence in there that I put in there, and I recently read it back, and it was hilarious to me. It said, Raw has a major match in each area. It has AJ and Seth, which they did in a month. They'd done that in 1 month. It had already had an pay-per-view. It was Becky and Alexa, who recently wrestled on Raw just because. and it was Revival and Usos, who ended up having like one of the most like odd feuds on on TV. And I was like, that kind of shows you, right? Like they didn't draft them and think what I thought and was like, okay, this saved their matches. No, man, they just stumble onto shit. Like if it gets there, it gets there. If not, who cares? That's literally what I hate to say it. I know it sounds like we're doing like the cliche critique thing, but it is hard to pretend they are planning things when stuff like that happens, you know?
Yeah, well, they fell into like the like Daniel Bryan stuff. They fell into the like Roman Reigns, and they fall into pretty much everything they do because they have no long-term planning whatsoever.
Right.
And that's what like I've spoken to like Andrew about it a lot in a couple of shows I've done with him. Just like if they just did a little bit of like long-term planning, it would make their shows a lot more compelling, because you do feel like they burn through matches which you really would like to see on a pay-per-view, whether it's like the Revival versus the Usos. They'll like chuck it on TV 3 weeks in a row, and then you don't want to see it anymore.
Then. Yeah, but this is what's interesting is, right, like, I mean, if you listen to the traditional Vince McMahon style, it was like, once upon a time, man, he knew next year's Mania like top 3, and he would like figure. And the reason for that is the reason that's so traditional in the way you do wrestling is because you need to know where someone's going in order to know how to handle them now, right? Like, perfect example being, if they knew in April that Natalya was going to wrestle Becky at SummerSlam, maybe, this is a big idea here, but maybe they just have Natalya win a couple matches, just a couple on Raw. Rather than, I think the exact stat was she hadn't won since March on TV, and then she won the Fatal 4-Way match, and it's like, okay, now we've got to care. Now we're supposed to care. They just ask us. Like, things like that. Just know where you're going and at least prepare us. I'm a big Ember Moon fan. I should feel the momentum building as she headed into the biggest match of her career. Instead, I just didn't watch SmackDown one week, and I'm being told she's in the SmackDown title match, you know?
And then after they announced that she was in it, they then had to lose 2 matches in the 2 weeks before
which I thought was a boy, but it was not. She just lost.
But it wasn't like she lost like a big match to like the champion. No. It was just like she lost a random tag team match, and I think she lost to Charlotte or something. And it's like, Jesus Christ, like, you've got all this talent and they don't take care.
Exactly. And it reminds me, you said earlier, you said, you know, a few people actually annoy you on Twitter. And I would say my group is the people that this sort of involves, because this is going to happen, and Ember's probably going to be kind of, you know, you won't see her as much in the coming months because it's going to be Charlotte and Becky, and that's fine, man. In SmackDown, they've got a lot of people to fit in. But someone will say Ember deserves better, and you'll have a group of people say she got the SummerSlam match, didn't get over. And it's like, man, that's unfair, because she didn't get a real opportunity to get over. She got an opportunity to have matches. You know, realistically, she's the sort of talent, whoever it is. It's not even, I like Ember, but you can choose whoever you want. Mandy, whoever, you know, Sonya. Choose someone and just focus on them a little bit. We spoke earlier about how great the original SmackDown brand split was. The reason for that was they had no options. So basically what I mean is like, well, Becky's our babyface. We need heels. We're going to have to give Carmella and Alexa time on the microphone. And thank goodness, both of them, to different levels, obviously, but they made the most of that, right? When can you point out when Liv Morgan or Mandy have got that same opportunity? I'm not saying they'd be good at it, God forbid, but my point is, if Alexa came up a year later, she's just another woman in a faction. Luckily, she came up when there was 6 girls in a division, and they were like, okay, we need to just give them a chance. Talent is often, if you look at when the biggest stars and stuff, and when guys broke through, it comes from necessity, man. It comes from the powers that be saying, we need to make something for this person. And then they explode. But if you've just got an endless cycle of guys, like Andrade is amazing. He's been up now for, 16 months maybe? He's in the same exact position he was in 16 months ago. He's had some good matches with Ray, but he's not actually really better off, is he? He's the same spot. Because, we don't have to build him up, because eventually maybe we can chuck him into a pay-per-view match, but there's no urgency of like, okay, just focusing on this one guy. That feels lost to me. I think Ricochet, they've done a pretty good job with, actually, though, since WrestleMania, to be fair.
Yeah, they've tried to protect him a little bit. Yeah. And I think that's all you ask, is that they just, if you've got guys like Ricochet or whoever,
Ali.
Ember Moon,
Yeah.
Ali, Andrade, just give them a bit of protection until you've got something. Keep them ticking over with wins until you're ready to have Andrade feud with Ray. So when he feuds with Ray, you think, oh, he's a real threat, and he could,
Yeah. Well, this is the interesting thing about, and this is something I touched on, is so obviously the last 2 weeks, Murphy's wrestled Roman and Bryan. And the irony of it is everyone spent 4 months saying, just let Buddy wrestle. But in truth, it actually helped him that he wasn't getting beat on TV, because that 4 months, people might have forgot about him. They didn't see him get beat. So by the time he started against Roman, it was like, you can book him however you want now, right? Like, he's still new. Is that good booking? Not at all. You shouldn't have guys sitting on the bench for 4 months when they're that good. But somehow it helped them that they didn't just go, we have nothing for him, so let's just have him lose to Ali. Do you see what I'm saying? In that one case, having no ideas was better than having a bad one. In that one case, it was.
Yeah. And I think, do you know what? I think he's going to be the one. I'm kind of hoping he's the one that's going to be behind all the Roman stuff, because I feel like that. Well, maybe I'm giving them too much credit, because I feel like that's the only reason that they would have had him beat Daniel Bryan on SmackDown last week clean.
Yeah.
Because if it's not him, it seems like they're building towards Roman versus Daniel Bryan, but Daniel Bryan just lost to Buddy. So it's like,
yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, as a fan, I would like Harper to be involved, because the notion that we're not going to, like, Harper's just going to sit while his contract ticks away is kind of sad to me. Like, someone enjoys him, but I totally agree with you. That's not a possibility. Like, I still think it's just going to be Daniel Bryan, and it's like, he's just coming up with all these different reasons it's not him. But I get what you mean. It feels kind of odd, the idea that they're just going to, like, Buddy's getting pushed, but he's actually got nothing to do with the actual end, the climax of the storyline. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's weird.
Strange booking, man. Okay, so we're just coming up to the hour mark. You're all right for a couple more minutes?
Yeah, I'm fine, man.
So what do you make of the Firefly Funhouse and the Fiend?
Well, the first time it came on, Sky Sports wasn't showing it, because I don't think they recognised it as Raw. So I was on social media waiting for Raw to come back, because I was doing the live coverage, right? And I'm like scrolling through, and everyone's like, what is happening? I'm like, oh no, what are they doing? And I saw the screenshot of Bray, and I was just thinking, man, what is this? But I think most of us, when we first watched it, while we thought it was super odd, especially like the way it was presented, within that product, it was so strange, it was so off the wall. But I think we all knew that there was going to be like a nice edge to this, right? Like, once you delved in deeper. And I mean, I think they actually handled it very, very well. I must say, I was kind of stunned at how, like, patient they were with it. And you knew it worked when the first time he showed up, that sort of gasp is the only evidence. Like, I could sit here and say it was bad, you could say it was great, I could say it was great, vice versa. But the actual critical opinion for that segment and that angle was when he turned up and the lights went down on Finn, the crowd gasped in sort of, oh my God, he's coming. That's all you need to know about as far as how well it was done, really, right? Like, we all have our own opinions, and I think it was great. Some people probably didn't like it, I guess, initially. But that was proof that there is still a sort of effect to vignettes rather than the traditional guy comes out and wins a squash match, right? Like that, the vignettes and the stories they told with them vignettes, it could transform Bray's career long term. Hopefully it does, because otherwise they've probably messed it up if it doesn't, really.
Yeah, the first episode of Firefly Funhouse, I actually tweeted. I watched it the next morning. I was really tired. I hadn't slept like at all. I'd had like an hour's sleep. I was not in a good mood. I was in pain. And I tweeted Sean Rossap, and I was like, what the fuck have they done to Bray? And then I actually watched it back. I think I tweeted him back a bit later on and said, oh yeah, I watched it a second time. And I kind of got it then. Yeah. But when I was tired, I had watched it, and I was like, they've made him a children's TV presenter.
It took a minute, right? It was like, oh no, What have they done?
But like, once I kind of watched it back, and then the next one, and what they did is, because they filmed them all together, and then released them. Like
exactly, they was able to actually tell a real story.
But they had a plan, because they released them. They didn't necessarily release them every week because they wanted it to build up to SummerSlam. So they filmed them all. They planned it. Then when they didn't have a show, like an episode of Firefly Funhouse, he would then turn up, or he would cut a promo separate from the Firefly Funhouse sort of pre-tapes. But they planned it. So then by the time you get to the bit where he's like turning up and attacking people are all on board, because they know it's coming, but they're waiting patiently. And is he going to come this week? No. And they built it perfectly. And what I liked is they didn't put him on Raw the night after SummerSlam as well. I thought that was really clever, because they should make it so you literally don't know when he's going to be there. But equally, don't go too far the other way, where people get annoyed that he's not turning up as well, because people want to, like it or not.
I think
people want to see it now.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's the problem with it. It's a babyface character now. Whether they like it or not, it's going to be a... But that's just the way wrestling is now. But it's interesting is that there's a lot of people out there that firmly believe at its core, WWE is best when it's producing characters like The Fiend. And it's a lot... Sometimes I think they... that what you just described there, the notion of planning and putting them out and letting the audience kind of wait, that's like traditional late 80s WWF, right? Like that is the stuff they once were great at. And if you really think about it, it reminds me of like when the guys used to talk about how like they'd be coming into WWF and they'd do vignettes, but they'd be doing the house shows, and with each week more people would have seen the vignettes on their local WWF TV. And it's like, it's that. Like it's not complicated, but obviously, look, don't get me wrong, you're not going to do... This is a one-off. You can't constantly do characters of this caliber and this degree. But it is proof that there is something to be said for that approach, right? Like that old school, this introduce them as a character first. The wrestling will get to that. That's fine. But let's let these people understand this is a character that they're interested in, they want to know more about. And then when he shows up, obviously you saw the reaction. It's like, as you said, anticipation. When is he going to be here? That matters a lot,
Yeah, and they got the entrance like spot on.
Oh yeah.
And the first time I was watching the entrance, when they did the close up of the lantern, I was like, what the and I like audibly was like quite shocked by it.
Yeah.
Because it was so different to what they would normally do. It fitted in with the character, but it was it was quite shocking, like to see like his head and his eyes so
and the way they shot it was great as well, right?
Yeah, and they do that stuff well when they and they've got their shit together. The other thing I liked is that he changed his moveset and the way he moved in the ring and the moves that he used. I thought actually, when he in the match where he like snapped his neck.
Yeah.
I ended the match then with that.
Yeah.
Because I think that would have been like the ultimate kind of shock value. Because when he did that, if you watch it back, the crowd kind of does audibly like it's really shocked. They're like, "Whoa, didn't expect that." And
well, it's the ultimate non-wrestler thing, right? Like there was another thing he did as well, where like he came out and he had the jacket on, and he took the jacket on off like 30 seconds in the match. But when the match started, Finn was ready to wrestle Bray, and he still had the full jacket and it was like it was a wonderful kind of little thing of like, he's not playing by the normal wrestler rules. And if he'd have finished the match with that, that's the same thing, right? It's like, this is a different character altogether. He's not going to be going... It would have been a totally different thing if he'd have took all his stuff off and had a 10-minute match with Finn when they, like, put a headlock on. So that's different. It was very much not that. And hopefully they keep that way, because there's no need for it to be, man, there's so many good wrestlers on that roster that can have great matches. Like, let Bray be... And Bray is a very good wrestler, in truth, but let him be the character, because that's different. He can do that. Other guys can't. They haven't got that luxury, Yeah. Don't make him do 20-minute matches. No need.
Yeah, and like he's a unique personality that they've got in that he can play that character and he can play the cult leader in a way that other people can't play their characters.
100%.
And like, even if you watch like those Halloween stories and like little clips of him, which they did, where they did like one where a news reporter went to the Wyatt compound or something, like when I think that was just before they came up to the main roster. But like, for him, you can tell in his head, he knows like where his character's from, why he's like he is.
Exactly.
What's happened to him? Why has he got Sister Abigail? Why is he like? Why just
He's
he's
special,
got
man. He is
reasons
special.
behind everything.
Yeah,
And I feel like that's the lost
forget it.
art of people.
Yeah, 100%.
Characters generally, they don't think about like, they just see it as an extension of themselves, and that's it. Rather than thinking, I don't know, I'm Finn Balor, that's my character, right? Why is he like the way he is? Why does he want to do this?
That phrase you just said, an extension himself, that can be a crutch in the same, like, that's why Bray's great, is because he isn't trying to do it. Like, it's great when Austin and Rock say we were just extensions of ourselves, but that doesn't mean that's the only way to do professional wrestling. Some guys use I'm just myself. I'm just going to go out and do, like, I'm just a cool guy. I'm going to go out and do my thing. But what you're saying is true in the sense that when you watch Bray, he's so committed to a character that it isn't him playing the character anymore. He's actually a person with past, faults. And the thing people forget is, I think a lot of people soured on Bray because of booking and just like, it was aimless at times and stuff. But people forget, go back and watch the initial Wyatt family stuff when he first came in. He had the same, man, he had it there, like it was in his hands. That it was electric when he first came in. People soured on it because of creative. And then whenever that happens, eventually the talent starts getting the blame for it, right? Like, I don't care about Bray. Man, Bray can make you care about him, trust me. And you've seen he's done it again. Now it's a matter of capitalising on it. How you do that within the confines of a wrestling show is their challenge, not ours. I think there's ways to do it, but we'll find out if they can do it, I guess, in the coming weeks, right?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they progress with it. Like, I've read a few things on Twitter and stuff where people have said like they're gonna really put the rocket back on him, and he could end up being champion by the end of the year, and they're going to give him custom belts. And like, the other thing which went in his favor, apart from the general reaction, on social media, in the crowd and everything, is that they released a load of merch like the week of SummerSlam, and it all sold really quick. It all sold, like the case they put out sold out in like under an hour, which for him, in terms of how the office looks at him,
it's a game changer. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make hot takes and stuff like that, God forbid. Mm-hmm. But I do. In my heart, I look at the show and I'm like, it certainly feels like the Universal title is headed to him, because I look at the landscape and I'm like, where are you going then? I think you might see something interesting with him and Braun, because there's obviously the history there. I think that might be a big, part of Raw in the fall. But do
you know what would be shocking if they did that? What would be shocking is if he like got the better of Braun in like a way that no one has ever
physically stuns him to the point where like he just manhandles him. That would be a crazy
visual. It'd just be an unbelievable visual. It would just be madness. And I think like that's something you could do. Because I got carried away like in myself that the SummerSlam thing was so good that I kind of, at the end of the match in the main event, I was like waiting for the Fiend to come out and attack Seth, just because like it'd been so good and so over, and it was like I want to see him turn up and like go to that next level.
I think we'll see that visual pretty soon, but I mean we might not. I guess I don't know. I don't know what else Seth's going to do after the Braun thing, right? But it feels like when you look at the pieces the cards at hand, it feels like the Fiend is like. I think there's very few guys right now, and this is just the way it is to me. Very few guys that feel like they're at the peak of their powers, like they're really on it. Like I think Kevin Owens is one of them guys. I think the Shane stuff needs to wrap up though, because it could quickly. I think the Fiend obviously is like the most obvious example, right? Like it's undeniable how different he is from everything else from the show. Whereas everyone else, it feels like, okay, we've seen him do this stuff for a while, and it's good. The Fiend is not that. There's a mystery to it because, like, we're sitting here now, we don't have a clue how they're going to actually play this stuff out on TV. So he's unique, and I think he's timed perfectly. So yeah, I expect it to be big time this fall in Raw. Yeah,
absolutely. Cool. Right. Thank you, Joe, for joining me, mate. I really, really appreciate it.
no worries, mate.
Tell the people where they can find you on social media.
Well, I'm at Joe Hulbert 5 on Twitter. That's the number 5, but I don't recommend you follow me because my account's very bad. But if you would like to, it is Joe Hulbert 5. Yeah, that's where I mean, if I'm doing good, I'm just tweeting article links. If I'm doing bad, there'll be like opinions and arguments and stuff. So hopefully I'm doing good. Yeah, hot takes are no good for anyone, man. They're not good for anyone.
Yeah, cool. And guys, you can find me on at ACEcast_nation. YouTube.com/AcePodcastNation for video versions of all the shows, and all our shows are available on audio download. Not iTunes anymore, is it? Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts now, Deezer, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, basically everywhere you can find us. And yeah, cool. I enjoyed that, mate. It was good fun.
Cheers, mate. Very much.
Yeah. Cheers, Joe. Cheers, guys, for listening, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.